All right, welcome to the Red Alert podcast on G Sports. I'm your host, Joe Chap. We're gonna be talking about some Red Wings rumors that have came up, and we're just gonna break them down because there's a lot of rumors through this whole entire offseason that I just want to kind of go through. Let's go through them all here. Obviously, the latest one was today, which is not on this graphic, but the latest one was Patrick Kane is going to sign a deal here in Detroit. That was from Darren Dreger in a Canadian radio market. He was talking about how Patrick Kane's inching to resign with the Detroit Red Wings. So that's a good thing. But when we look at the rumors from the offseason, Jeff Merrick, um, former of Sportsnet, but he's not there no more. He says Detroit is in the goalie market. What I find very, very interesting about the Red Wings being in the goalie market is it free agency or is it a trade? Because we all know the free agent route, the goalies aren't that good. It's slim pickings out there. But when you go through the trades, you got Thatcher Demko, you got Jonathan Gibson, you got Elvis Merzlikins that are available for trade. If you look at some of the trade boards, but you never know who really is truly available on the goalie market. And everyone's looking for goalies in the NHL. There's a team in the Stanley Cup Finals that should be looking for a goalie in the Edmonton Oilers, but not a lot of teams have them. And you have Sebastian Cossa and you have Trey Augustine, who are still developing. And we all know, if you've ever followed hockey, if you don't follow hockey, goalies are it's a different pace. There's guys that develop really quick, and there's guys that take a little bit of a time. Like we look at a guy like Jordan Binnington for the Blues. I mean, he was almost loaned to the Providence Bruins for a playoff run. I mean, that tells you how bad you have to be. And he ends up being a Stanley Cup champion and Four Nations winner, and he'll be on the Canadian team this year. But it just goes to show you that, you never really know how these goalies are really going to develop in real time. Let's look at the second rumor. It's Detroit is in the top three to sign Aaron Ekblad with Toronto and Edmonton. David Pagnotta and EJ Hradek of NHL Network have said. Now, this is something I would really like. If the Red Wings were able to sign Aaron Ekblad, I think he'd be very, very good here. The problem is he is a right-handed shot. When you look at Aaron Ekblad, like there's nothing that's really overwhelmingly bad about him. I mean, I think he's not the best defenseman on the Florida Panthers, but he is a right-handed shot. You need a right-handed shot, but also you need a left-handed shot on the side of Mr. Sider. So if Edmondson can pop up to that line, you could have Ekblad and Johansson. That could be a really dominant duo if you could just kind of piece it together. And we all know that you can't have the same top four that you had, but I think Johansson could be a potential top four defenseman. He played really, really well last year. I'm interested to see what he does in his second, full year with the Detroit Red Wings. But look, Aaron Ekblad wouldn't hurt by any stretch of the imagination. Actually, he would really help. So if you got to make the necessary adjustment to get Aaron Ekblad here, you could do that. The third rumor is Detroit has shown interest in Mitch Marner. Now, I don't know how much I trust that. I know Pierre LeBrun is a hell of a guy, and he's going to do a damn good job at what he does. But I don't believe the Detroit Red Wings are going to be in the market for Mitch Marner. I believe Marner is going to go to a Western Conference team. I think he's going to go to either Vegas or Anaheim. Why Anaheim? I have no idea. But it just seems to me like the kid wants the money. And to be honest, like you look at the core four in Toronto, Mitch Marner is a damn good player. There's no doubt about it. Maybe he's better in a different situation, but there's parts of his game I really don't like. And it'd be, if the Red Wings did go and sign him, I wouldn't be mad. But I think that you can definitely use the money in a different category because, look, Mitch Marner is not fixing your defense. It's not fixing your goaltender. I think, we always get lost in the sauce about star players in the NHL. I mean, in totality, it's about the team. It's about the goalie. It's about the defenseman. I mean, let's look at Edmonton, right? They're in the Stanley Cup Finals. And the reason that they haven't been able to seize control of this series is because they have the worst off goaltending. They have the best player in the world and they have the second best center in the world, and they can't outscore their mistakes. That's just how this game goes. It's not this easy game where you could just throw out your best players and go win a cup. It's not. It doesn't work that way. If it worked that way, Connor McDavid would have way more cups. He's the best player I've ever watched in my entire life, and he has no cups. No cups. Him and Draisaitl are damn good players, but that's not act like the Edmonton Oilers have been world beaters. They are the best because of who they play with. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And the problem they have in the Stanley Cup Finals is they don't have the goaltending to match a guy like Sergei Bobrovsky. So when you say let's go sign a star player, yes, you want to get a star player, but at the same time, you can't ignore what you have in deficiencies because they will come home to roost. And I know a lot of people are like, we just want to make the playoffs. We just want to make the playoffs. Well, if you make the playoffs and you never really go anywhere, but you pay Mitch Marner all this money, it doesn't matter. So it's an interesting category because, look, Toronto, I'm sure they would love to sign Marner, but they know what it is. So it is what it is. And the last rumor is Detroit is exploring the trade market for Vladimir Terasenko. Now, I have no idea what the trade market is for Vladimir Terasenko. To be honest, I don't think there's much of a trade market for Vladimir Terasenko. But what I will say is Vladimir Terasenko could be a useful piece to some team. I don't think he's a useful piece to this team, but in a Marchand role on a team like Florida or something, he'd be useful. I mean, let's just not forget, just a year ago in the Stanley Cup playoffs, he was a third or fourth line player for the Florida Panthers. So it didn't work out here in Detroit. Maybe they could circle back and try it again, but it didn't seem like it worked out, and he was really struggling, and he might not fit the culture that Todd McLellan is trying to put together. But overall, this is going to be an interesting offseason because obviously with all these rumors that you have, Detroit's mentioning a lot of things, and they do need to get better. Obviously, like if you listen to the Todd McLellan video, I said right away, I don't expect them to be great. Like I don't expect them to go out and sign a guy like some world beater. It's not going to happen. I mean, there's only one guy, Mitch Marner. I like Nick Ehlers, but we'll see what happens. You never know what can happen, but they just need to get better at the value signings. I think what made Florida was all the value signings. A guy like Sam Bennett, who they got for cheap, Mikko Mikkola, who was a throwaway. They got Brandon Montour at one point, and he went to Seattle and made some money. They got Sam Bennett, and they picked up Brad Marchand for a cheap ass draft pick. So that's how you build a roster. That's been the whole thing about Yzerman is he signs got to spare does good, and he says, no, I want to get a better defenseman. He goes with Gustafsson, who's better defensive analytically, but isn't better offensively. So it was a kind of a net negative. And a guy like Sherratt, who, I've talked about overall on the podcast, he's a guy who would be great as a bottom six guy on a good team, but overall, I mean, he's not a guy that's going to play these top end minutes. And that's what Detroit has forced him into. And that's on Stevie, but Stevie has the chance to rectify it. Obviously, his drafts have been pretty damn good, but the way that his pro scouting has been, that's been a significant issue. So we'll see what he does this offseason. There's going to be a lot of rumors coming out. Stay tuned to JC Sports on the Red Alert podcast. We'll have another podcast pretty soon, but this is going to be a very interesting offseason for the Detroit Red Wings and see what they can get themselves into. So we'll see what happens, and subscribe below and comment below what you want to happen this offseason for the Detroit Red Wings. We'll see you in the next video.